Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you so much for joining me again today. Thank you for lending me your ears. Today, I'm going to start, it's going to probably be maybe a multiple-part series here on upselling conversation starters. Let me say that again, upselling conversation starters. Now, if you're in B2B or even B2C, this applies to you. Sometimes when we know we've made the sale, we want to try to find a way to upsell the client to actually buy more, upsell being buy more of what they're already buying, or buy something else, a cross-sell or an add-on. Now, asking someone to consider buying more still leaves the buyer asking themselves a question: do I really need it? Or, does it make sense? Does this make sense? So sometimes an upsell feature might be apparent, in which case it makes it easy to buy. But in the majority of cases, the buyer is trying to rationalize, make sense of it, and or justify, will I utilize this if I spend this much more money? So you can help them make that buying decision by always giving them a reason why. You want to say, here's why. So the challenge at times is finding a way to kick off an upsell conversation. That's what this podcast is all about. How do you kick off an upsell conversation without being seen as anxious or overzealous? So what I've done is I've created a list of upsell phrases that you can use to get the customer to consider buying more of something, an upsell, or again, additional add-ons. Now, each phrase that I give you should always be accompanied with a why, a reason why, to give it that much more power. So let's start it with the first upsell phrase. Quote, will that be enough? So you're talking to a customer. I want you to visualize this. Customers hate to be caught short or wanting. They resent being limited. So let's say that you're trying to sell something, but you want them to buy more, but they're not really thinking about that what they're buying won't be enough. So you want to use that phrase, will that be enough? Now, you could exploit this negative reactance by making them aware in the moment of what they're buying. It might be limited. In other words, it might not be enough. So you might say something like this, George, based on what you told me and how you'll be using this, whatever it may be, will this much, for example, memory be enough? Here's why I'm asking. If you're going to ABC, give them the reason. So let me go through this slowly. It's really important. You want to use the phrase, will that be enough? Again, George, based on what you've told me and how you're going to use this computer, for example, will X amount of memory be enough? Here's why I'm asking, George, because you said you were going to do these things, so I'm wondering, will this be enough? Now, see what I've done? I've just created this awareness in the client's mind that maybe they won't have enough of something. Now, this can be used in so many different ways. Not only selling a computer, anything that has limits of capacity, this is a perfect upsell phrase conversation starter. Will that be enough? If you're buying, let's say, an allotment of time, will that be enough time? Or do you think you should buy a little more? Remember, I have an unlimited plan for mobile, right? For telephones. So back in the day, and maybe they still happen out there, is that you buy, let's say, 300 to 500 minutes. And so the upsell phrase would work like this. Will that be enough? Will 500 minutes per month be enough, given the fact that last month you almost used 500, and if you go over the limit, you'll be charged X amount per whatever minutes you use over that limit. So whatever it may be, that phrase, will that be enough, is a very powerful upsell phrase. Let's go to phrase number 2. By the way. Oh, I love that one. That's one. Again, it's a great way to start an upsell conversation. You're talking to the customer and you see an opportunity to mention something else that they might be interested in. So you casually say, by the way, that computer you're buying does come with fill in the blank, but you'll also need fill in the blank. Here's why I think it's important. Notice I keep tying the why after the upsell phrase conversation. So let me repeat that again. By the way, that's the upsell phrase number 2. By the way. So you're talking to the customer, and again, you see an opportunity to sell something else that they might be interested in. You casually say, by the way, that computer you're buying does come with X, but you'll also need to have Y. And here's why I think it's important. And again, the why reason after the conversation started, the upsell conversation started, is important because you're trying to help them justify and rationalize buying more, going for the upsell. Now, let's go to upsell phrase number 3. Now that you mentioned that, so again, let's go back to a conversation. You're in a conversation with the customer. The customer may say something to you that triggers you to consider adding something into the buying mix. So for example, let's say the customer just mentions an item and immediately your brain gets triggered and you go, aha, I need to mention this. You say something like, now that you mentioned that, let me show you what I would add if I were you, and here's why. So again, and there's always the and here's why. So let's recap this. 3 upsell phrases I want you to practice. The first one, will that be enough? And again, what you're doing is creating this mindset of scarcity in the client's mind. Will that be enough? Customer's going to think, well, will it be enough? I don't know. And again, you want to create a little bit of doubt to get the customer to consider buying more bandwidth, more memory, more minutes, whatever it may be. The second upsell phrase, by the way, and again, that's something that you can casually mention. By the way, the computer that you're buying, ... comes with this, but it doesn't come with this. And here's why you should consider it, or why that's important. Upsell phrase number 3. Now that you mention that, and again, I love that one because you can really throw that in almost any part of the closing conversation. Now that you mentioned that, I want to show you something. Let me show you what I think would be even better or something you should consider, and here's why. So again, 3 phrases. Will that be enough? By the way, and now that you mentioned that, 3 phrases that you can use to upsell, start that conversation, and get the client to buy more. In the next podcast, we're going to do a few more upsell conversation starters, and that is it for this Sales Influence podcast. Don't forget to leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Let me know what you think. I greatly appreciate it. Also, check out my Sales Velocity Academy, salesvelocityacademy.com. If you want to sell more faster, check it out. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.